Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sleep Space. Tonight, we will talk about what if dreams are messages from another version of you. For as long as humans have closed their eyes at night and drifted into that strange inner theatre of the mind, we've been fascinated by what dreams mean. Some people see them as simple byproducts of brain activity. Others believe they're windows into our subconscious. But what if they were something far more mysterious? What if the dream you had last night was not just your imagination, but a signal, a fragment, or even a transmission from another you living in another version of reality? This idea may sound like science fiction at first, yet the history of human thought has always entertained the possibility that dreams connect us to something beyond ourselves. From ancient shamans who treated dreams as gateways to the spirit world, to philosophers like Plato who saw them as hints of a deeper truth, to modern scientists who study sleep with brain scans, the question has never been fully settled. So let's explore it from many sides. We'll look at how science explains dreams, how quantum physics hints at parallel possibilities, how psychology sees patterns that might connect our inner worlds, and how cultures across time have believed dreams serve as bridges to other realms. To start, let's ground ourselves in what we know. In scientific terms, dreams are tied to REM sleep, the stage of the night where our brains become highly active while our bodies remain paralyzed. In this state, the brain generates vivid images, scenarios, and emotions. Neuroscientists say dreams are partly the result of memory processing, emotional regulation, and random neural firing that the brain strings into stories. But this explanation, while practical, doesn't capture why dreams can feel so meaningful. Why would random signals give rise to visions that sometimes predict events, solve problems, or reveal insights we hadn't yet consciously discovered? Why do so many people report dreams that feel more real than waking life? One possibility is that dreams are not just random noise, but structured messages from within. Psychologists like Carl Jung suggested that dreams reflect the collective unconscious, a deep reservoir of archetypes and symbols shared by all humans. But even Jung left open the idea that dreams could connect us to something beyond time and space. Some dream researchers, like the neuroscientist Alan Hobson, argue that dreams are proto-conscious, meaning they serve as a rehearsal space for possible realities. If that's the case, could it be that our dreaming brain isn't just simulating possibilities, but actually linking us to versions of ourselves living those possibilities elsewhere? Here is where the concept of parallel realities comes into play. In quantum physics, there's a famous interpretation known as the many worlds interpretation. According to it, every time a quantum event occurs, such as a particle existing in one position or another, the universe splits into multiple branches. Each branch represents a different version of reality. If that's true, then there are countless versions of you living slightly different lives in countless alternate worlds. Now imagine if dreams were a way for your consciousness to momentarily tune into those other versions. That sudden dream of living in a different city, with a different job, surrounded by people you don't know. What if it wasn't fiction, but a glimpse into another branch of reality where you do live that life? Skeptics might ask, why would our brains, confined in our skulls, access these other worlds? The answer might lie in the nature of consciousness itself. Scientists still don't fully understand what consciousness is or how it arises. Some theories suggest it's not just a byproduct of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of the universe, woven into the fabric of reality itself. If consciousness is more like a field we tap into, rather than something trapped in our heads, then perhaps dreams are moments when that field shifts its focus, aligning with another stream of awareness that belongs to another you. This perspective would explain why dreams often feel like memories of experiences we've never had. You wake up with emotions tied to events that never happened in your waking life, yet they feel strangely familiar. The boundaries between self and other blur. Could it be that your sleeping mind was momentarily inhabiting the perspective of another self in another universe, sending back impressions that your waking self interprets as a dream? Consider also the problem solving nature of dreams. History is full of examples where great ideas and breakthroughs came in dreams. The structure of the benzene molecule was famously revealed to chemist Auguste Kekulé in a dream of a snake biting its own tail. The melody for Yesterday came to Paul McCartney in a dream. Countless inventors, artists, and scientists have credited dreams with delivering answers they couldn't find while awake. If we take the multiverse idea seriously, then perhaps these dreams were not just the brain reorganizing thoughts, but actual transmissions from versions of themselves who already discovered the solution. But let's not limit ourselves only to modern science. Human cultures across the globe have long treated dreams as messages from beyond. Indigenous peoples often saw dreams as instructions from ancestors or spirits. Ancient Egyptians believed dreams were prophecies. In Greek culture, temples of Asclepius allowed people to sleep in sacred chambers to receive healing visions in their dreams. Even in today's world, many people report dreams that seem to predict events or reveal truths hidden from their conscious mind. While mainstream science tends to dismiss such experiences as coincidence, their persistence across time and cultures suggests there's something deeper at work. Now let's return to the idea of messages. If dreams are indeed messages, the question is, who is sending them? Is it our subconscious, a divine presence, or perhaps another version of ourselves? Imagine that somewhere out there is another you facing a difficult decision, and in the moment of their dreaming, they send an impression into your mind that you interpret as your own dream. At the same time, maybe your dreams are being sent to them. This exchange could be a natural phenomenon, an unconscious sharing of information across the boundaries of reality. It might even explain why sometimes dreams carry warnings, guidance, or sudden clarity. The mechanics of this are, of course, a mystery. One way to imagine it is through resonance. Just as two tuning forks vibrate together when struck, perhaps two versions of you in different realities resonate at times when your lives align. Sleep might lower the barriers of perception, allowing those vibrations to cross over. Dreams would then be the language of resonance, a way for consciousness to translate unfamiliar signals into stories and images. And this brings us to symbolism. Dreams are rarely straightforward. They tend to cloak their meaning in strange images: flying through the sky, losing teeth, being chased, finding yourself in places you don't recognize. Psychologists interpret these symbols as reflections of hidden thoughts or fears. But if we see them as messages from another self, then perhaps the symbols are simply the closest translation your mind can create. If your alternate self experienced something beyond your comprehension, your brain might render it into metaphor. In this way, dreams become coded messages, not direct transmissions, but transformed signals that require interpretation. It's worth noting that modern technology already shows us how signals can cross great distances and be transformed. A voice on one side of the world can be turned into invisible waves, sent through the air, and reconstructed on the other side as sound. If human technology can achieve that, could consciousness, a phenomenon far more complex, naturally achieve something similar? Dreams might be the evidence of such a communication system already built into the fabric of existence. At the same time, we must keep our critical thinking intact. Dreams are easily shaped by our own memories, anxieties, and desires. The majority of dream content likely does come from within. But even if 99% of dreams are internal constructions, the possibility that even a fraction are messages from elsewhere is worth pondering. After all, even one genuine glimpse across realities would change our entire understanding of the universe. Finally, there's the emotional dimension. Dreams often evoke feelings that linger long after the images fade. Sometimes they fill us with joy, other times with fear, sadness, or wonder. These emotions may themselves be part of the message. Perhaps the feeling is the purest signal that survives translation. A dream about losing someone might not literally be about loss, but a transmission of grief from another you. A dream of soaring might be the joy of freedom from another existence. In this way, the emotions we carry from dreams are not just echoes of neurons firing, but actual shared experiences across selves. So tonight, as we begin this journey together, we're opening the door to a radical possibility that the theatre of dreams is not a closed stage inside your mind, but a window into other lives, other paths, and other versions of you. As we move deeper into this exploration, we'll look at scientific, philosophical, and cultural perspectives to see just how far this idea can take us. Because if dreams are indeed messages, then perhaps every night we are not just resting, but receiving fragments of another life, whispered across the infinite expanse of possibility. When we begin examining the scientific side of dreams, the first question is, what exactly is happening in the brain when we enter that mysterious landscape each night? Modern neuroscience has given us extraordinary tools to look inside the sleeping mind. Brain imaging technology, such as EEG and fMRI, reveals patterns of electrical activity that change depending on the stage of sleep. During the day, our brains hum with activity, processing sensory input, making decisions, and storing experiences as memories. At night, a cycle of sleep stages begins, shifting between light sleep, deep slow wave sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep, often called REM. REM is the stage most closely associated with vivid dreaming. In this phase, the brain lights up almost as much as when we are awake. Neurons in the visual cortex, motor regions, and areas linked to emotion all fire actively. Strangely, the body is paralyzed during REM, a phenomenon known as atonia, which prevents us from acting out our dreams physically. The paradox is striking. While our muscles remain still, our minds generate entire worlds filled with movement, sound, and drama. Scientists once believed that dreams were nothing more than meaningless side effects of brain activity. In the 1970s, a theory called the activation synthesis model suggested that dreams result from random bursts of brainstem activity, which the cortex tries to weave into a narrative. It's like static on a television, interpreted as a story by the mind. Yet this theory fails to explain why dreams often carry coherence, symbolism, and even problem-solving functions. If dreams were truly random, why would they sometimes help us discover solutions we couldn't find while awake? Why would they revisit recurring themes or unresolved conflicts? Clearly more is at play than chance firing of neurons. Recent research has moved toward understanding dreams as integral to memory and learning. During sleep, the hippocampus replays experiences from the day, consolidating them into long-term storage. This replay seems to appear in dream content, where fragments of real life intermingle with imagination. For instance, if you studied for an exam or practiced a skill, you might dream about it. Sleep researchers have found that dreaming about a task often improves performance the next day. This suggests that dreams are not accidents, but part of a cognitive process where the brain is rehearsing, refining, and embedding knowledge. But here's where the mystery deepens. If dreams help the brain rehearse future possibilities, who's to say those possibilities are only confined to your waking timeline? If the mind is simulating outcomes, it may be sampling from a much wider space of potential realities than we realize. Some neuroscientists describe the dreaming brain as a prediction engine, constantly generating models of what could happen. Yet those models might overlap with other actualized versions of reality, ones in which another you has already taken a different path. That overlap could create the impression that dreams are not just imagined, but borrowed from experiences elsewhere. Another fascinating aspect of dream research involves the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and self-awareness. During REM sleep, this region is less active, which may explain why dreams feel so immersive and unquestioned while they happen. You don't stop to ask, is this real? Instead, you accept the bizarre as normal. However, there are states known as lucid dreams where the prefrontal cortex partially reactivates, giving you awareness that you are dreaming. Lucid dreamers can sometimes even control their dreams. If consciousness can become aware and exert control within a dream, it suggests the dreaming mind is far more flexible than the waking one. Could lucid dreaming be a moment when the boundary between versions of yourself becomes more negotiable, allowing you to send or receive information intentionally? The chemistry of sleep adds another layer of intrigue. Neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, dopamine, and serotonin shift dramatically at night. Dopamine, associated with motivation and reward, is active in REM, which might explain why dreams often have a heightened emotional intensity. But these chemicals don't just create internal states, they modulate perception and memory. They could also serve as the brain's tuning mechanism, adjusting which frequencies of consciousness are accessible. Just as radio dials can move between stations, perhaps these chemical states shift the mind's dial toward alternate channels of self. What's equally fascinating is how often dreams defy the logic of time. In waking life, time is linear. Seconds tick forward one after another. In dreams, however, time can expand, collapse, or twist. You might experience what feels like hours of adventure, only to wake and realize mere minutes have passed. This distortion raises the question: what framework of reality are dreams operating in? If dreams can bend time, could they also bend the boundaries between different versions of existence? If oneself experiences time differently from another, dreams may be the common ground where those timelines overlap. Memory also plays a strange role in dreams. Sometimes you dream of people you haven't seen in years, or places you thought you'd forgotten. Sometimes entirely fictional characters and landscapes appear, yet you feel as though you've known them forever. Where does this information come from? Neuroscientists would say it emerges from the vast network of associations in your brain, but the uncanny familiarity of dream elements often feels like they belong to memories that aren't yours. Could this sense of recognition be the residue of contact with another self's memories? Perhaps what we call dream recall is actually partial recall of another version of life, glimpsed fleetingly and then lost upon waking. One particularly strange phenomenon that ties into this is déjà vu, that sudden, eerie feeling that you've experienced a moment before. Some scientists attribute it to memory misfires in the temporal lobe. Others think it may occur when the brain processes sensory information twice, slightly out of sync. But what if déjà vu is actually the mind recognizing an overlap between realities? A moment when your waking experience aligns with something another version of you has already lived. If that's the case, then dreams, where overlaps are freer and more fluid, might be the training ground for such crossovers. There's also compelling research into how dreams process emotions. Psychologist Rosalind Cartwright argued that dreams act as a kind of therapy, helping us work through feelings of loss, conflict, or hope. People who dream about stressful events often cope with them better in waking life. If dreams are messages from other selves, then perhaps this emotional processing isn't just yours alone. Maybe it's part of a larger exchange where alternate versions of you are sharing emotional burdens and lessons, redistributing the weight of existence across realities. It's worth pausing to ask, how would such a process actually work? Our current scientific tools are designed to measure electrical impulses, brain chemistry, and observable behavior. They're not yet equipped to detect transmissions between versions of self, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The history of science shows us that phenomena once considered mystical, like lightning, magnetism, or disease, eventually found explanations as knowledge advanced. Dreams could belong to the same category, natural yet not yet understood. Some researchers in the field of quantum biology explore whether quantum processes might play a role in the brain. If quantum effects influence consciousness, then entanglement, the phenomenon where particles remain connected across vast distances, could provide a mechanism for connection across realities. Imagine if your neurons are not only firing electrical signals, but also entangling with particles tied to other versions of you. In dreams, when ordinary sensory input is silenced, the brain might become more receptive to those quantum whispers, allowing experiences from another existence to seep through. Of course, this remains speculative, but speculation has always driven exploration. Just because something sounds improbable doesn't mean it's impossible. The scientific view of dreams continues to evolve, and with each new discovery, the mystery only deepens. Every night, without fail, we enter a theatre of shifting landscapes, impossible physics, and intense emotions. Science tells us these are brain-generated simulations, yet it also admits that the function and meaning of dreams are far from fully understood. That uncertainty leaves room for wonder and for possibilities that stretch beyond the boundaries of what we currently know. As we think about the science of dreams, we find a paradox. The brain generates them, but their meaning often feels as though it comes from outside the brain. They are shaped by memory, yet they feel like new experiences. They exist in time, yet they play with time's rules. They emerge from neurons, yet they sometimes give us wisdom, warnings, or creativity that seem greater than ourselves. This paradox is the doorway through which the idea of dreams as messages from another self can enter. If the science of dreams doesn't fully explain their richness, perhaps it's because we're only looking at one side of the equation. The other side may belong to the vast landscape of possibility, the infinite versions of reality where other selves are living out their own nights, perhaps dreaming of you in return. Across history, people have looked to dreams not as accidents of the mind, but as revelations, warnings, and guidance from beyond. In every corner of the world, stories and traditions reveal how seriously dreams were taken. They were not brushed aside as private hallucinations. They were seen as truths delivered in symbolic form. These interpretations show us that the idea of dreams as messages has been with us since the beginning of civilization, long before modern neuroscience. In ancient Mesopotamia, one of the earliest centers of human civilization, people kept detailed records of dreams on clay tablets. Kings consulted dream interpreters before battles, believing their outcomes were foreshadowed in the dream world. There are accounts of rulers receiving instructions or warnings in their sleep and adjusting their decisions accordingly. The culture treated dreams as a direct channel between human life and cosmic order, as though sleep was a nightly diplomatic meeting with the gods. The Egyptians also placed immense weight on the dream realm. They constructed dream temples where people could sleep in hopes of receiving visions that held cures for illnesses or solutions to personal dilemmas. Priests trained in dream interpretation acted as mediators between the divine and the dreamer. The Egyptians believed the soul left the body at night to travel through unseen dimensions, encountering beings and symbols that carried meaning. If one takes the idea of alternate selves seriously, this belief resonates with the notion of the dreamer temporarily leaving ordinary consciousness to connect with another existence. In Greece, dreams were central to both philosophy and healing. The temples of Asclepius functioned as centers for what we might call dream therapy. People came to seek guidance from the god of medicine by spending the night in a sacred chamber, waiting for healing visions. Philosophers like Aristotle wrote about dreams as reflections of bodily and mental states, while Plato hinted that they connected us to a higher truth beyond ordinary perception. To the Greeks, dreams weren't trivial. They were a dimension of experience that could reveal the health of both soul and body. The Romans inherited many Greek traditions, but added their own perspective. Military leaders often consulted dreams before embarking on campaigns. The famous historian Livy recounted numerous instances of dreams predicting events, treating them as omens. Even the skeptical Roman intellectuals didn't completely dismiss dreams. They often admitted they could reflect deeper realities, though they debated whether the source was divine, psychological, or cosmic. Far to the east, in India, dreams were woven into both Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Hindu scriptures mention dreams as reflections of past karma, messages from gods, or glimpses into other planes of existence. The Upanishads describe different states of consciousness, including the waking state, the dreaming state, and the deep sleep state, all of which are facets of a greater universal self. The dreaming state, in particular, was seen as a bridge where the individual self could connect with higher knowledge. In Buddhism, dreams are sometimes interpreted as illusions, reminders of the impermanence of reality. Yet Buddhist masters also described lucid dreams as opportunities for insight and training of the mind. Both traditions acknowledge that dreaming can reveal truths hidden from ordinary awareness. In Chinese culture, dreams held multiple layers of meaning. Taoist traditions considered dreams a space where the soul could wander freely, meeting other beings or encountering different versions of life. Confucian texts often discussed the moral implications of dreams, suggesting that they could reflect the harmony or disharmony of one's inner character. Ancient Chinese medical texts also used dreams diagnostically, linking particular dream themes with imbalances in the body. Interestingly, there are stories of sages who believed dreams allowed travel into alternate worlds, not unlike stepping into parallel dimensions. Such accounts align with the modern speculation that dreams might be windows into other selves. Among indigenous peoples across the Americas, dreams were revered as powerful guides. Many tribes treated them as communication with ancestors, spirits, or forces of nature. The Iroquois believed dreams expressed the desires of the soul and needed to be honored in waking life. The Lakota saw dreams as visions, some of which carried instructions for the dreamer's role in the community. Dream catchers, originating with the Ojibwe, symbolized the importance of filtering dreams, letting the helpful ones pass through, while trapping harmful visions. These traditions highlight the belief that dreams are not private fantasies, but shared communications with larger realities. In African cultures, dreams also played central roles in spiritual life. Among the Zulu, dreams were often seen as visitations from ancestors, offering advice, warnings, or blessings. The Yoruba interpreted dreams as both reflections of personal life and as messages from spiritual beings. These traditions reinforce the idea that dreams connect the living with forces beyond them. If we think of alternate selves as part of that beyond, then ancestral or spiritual encounters in dreams may also be interpreted as meetings with other versions of the human spirit across different dimensions. Even in the Islamic world, dreams have long been considered a form of divine communication. The Prophet Muhammad is said to have placed high importance on dreams, regarding some as a fraction of prophecy. Islamic scholars developed entire systems of dream interpretation, treating them as subtle communications that could contain truths about one's life or the broader world. This cultural reverence shows again how deeply ingrained the belief is that dreams carry meaning from outside ordinary consciousness. What unites all these traditions is a shared conviction: dreams matter. They are not meaningless byproducts of the brain, but signals, communications, and truths delivered through symbols. The source of those messages varied: gods, spirits, ancestors, the higher self, or the universe itself. But the function remained the same: a bridge between waking life and something larger. And here is where the modern idea of alternate selves finds a natural fit. Perhaps what cultures described as deities, ancestors, or spirits could, in part, have been glimpses of other versions of the dreamer. The form of the message might have been shaped by culture, but the underlying experience, the feeling of contact with another source, remains consistent. The symbolic nature of dreams further strengthens this idea. Across cultures, dream symbols are often interpreted according to archetypal meaning. A snake may symbolize danger, rebirth, or knowledge depending on context. Flying might represent freedom, transcendence, or spiritual elevation. These symbols can be seen as translations, as if the human mind needs to dress the message in familiar imagery so it can be understood. If dreams are indeed transmissions from other versions of ourselves, the symbols might simply be the closest approximation our brain can make to unfamiliar experiences. A dream of flying could represent another self who has achieved freedom you have yet to experience. A dream of water might be the echo of another self immersed in entirely different circumstances. The persistence of prophetic and precognitive dreams in folklore adds another layer. There are countless reports across time and geography of people dreaming events before they occur. Some dismiss these as coincidences, while others see them as evidence of time flowing differently in dreams. If we apply the alternate self perspective, these dreams might not be predictions at all, but transmissions from versions of ourselves for whom the event has already happened. What feels like foresight may instead be memory imported from another timeline. Cultural traditions also reveal that dreams were rarely seen as purely personal. They were often shared, discussed, and interpreted communally. Families, tribes, and entire societies treated dreams as collective messages, shaping decisions, rituals, and strategies. This communal interpretation underscores the idea that dreams are part of a larger network of meaning, not just individual psychology. When one person dreamed of danger, the entire group might prepare. When another dreamed of abundance, it lifted the spirit of the community. In a world of alternate selves, this communal aspect could reflect the interconnectedness of all versions of us, with messages rippling outward, influencing not only the dreamer, but also the broader network of lives. What stands out most is the universality. From Egypt to China, from the Americas to Africa, from Greece to India, humans everywhere agreed. Dreams are significant. They are not empty illusions, but bridges to knowledge, guidance, or truth. The forms varied, but the conviction was nearly universal. Such a consistent belief across millennia and across cultures that never contacted one another suggests there is something deeply real at the heart of the dream experience. Modern skepticism often reduces these traditions to superstition, but dismissing them too quickly overlooks the possibility that our ancestors were attuned to aspects of consciousness we no longer value. If they were correct that dreams connect us beyond ourselves, then perhaps our scientific lens is simply missing what they instinctively understood: that dreaming is not confined to the brain, but extends into the fabric of reality itself. And if that fabric contains countless versions of us, then what they described as divine or ancestral might well be another form of self, whispering across the veil of worlds. When psychology began to emerge as a science in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, dreams quickly became one of its central puzzles. The pioneering figures of modern psychology, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, each built vast theories of the human mind in which dreams were not side effects but critical windows into deeper processes. Their interpretations, though very different, still echo in how we think about dreams today, and they both leave room for a more mysterious understanding, one that could connect to the idea of dreams as messages from alternate selves. Freud was among the first to propose that dreams serve a psychological function. In his famous work, The Interpretation of Dreams, he argued that dreams reveal hidden desires and conflicts buried in the unconscious mind. According to Freud, much of our mental life consists of urges and thoughts we repress because they conflict with social norms or our own sense of self. These hidden impulses, however, don't vanish. They find expression in disguised form, and dreams are one of their outlets. To Freud, every dream had a manifest content, the literal storyline we recall, and a latent content, the hidden meaning symbolized beneath the surface. While Freud's theories may seem overly focused on sexuality and repression, his insight that dreams express hidden layers of mind remains influential. If we frame this in terms of alternate selves, then perhaps what Freud described as repressed desires could also be seen as experiences lived out by another version of us. A dream about forbidden action might not only symbolize an unconscious wish, but also reflect a reality where another self acted on it. In this sense, Freud's unconscious could overlap with the multiverse. Both are realms of possibility outside our waking control, leaking into dreams through symbols and stories. Carl Jung, Freud's one-time student and later critic, offered a very different perspective. Jung believed that dreams were not merely expressions of repressed wishes, but communications from a deeper layer of psyche he called the collective unconscious. This vast reservoir contained archetypes, universal patterns and symbols shared across humanity. Figures like the wise old man, the hero, the mother, and the shadow appeared in dreams across cultures, regardless of personal experience. Jung saw dreams as messages from this deeper self, urging the dreamer toward growth, balance, and integration. Jung's vision resonates strongly with the idea of dreams as messages. If archetypes emerge across cultures, they may represent structures that transcend individual minds. Now imagine extending this further. What if archetypes are not only shared across people, but across versions of self in different realities? The shadow you meet in a dream might be more than a personal weakness or fear. It might be another you, living out qualities you've suppressed. The wise figure might be another self who has walked a path of knowledge you haven't yet taken. Jung's collective unconscious could easily be seen as the shared ground where different versions of us overlap, sending one another guidance through symbolic language. Jung also described the process of individuation, the journey of integrating all parts of the self into wholeness. Dreams, in his view, served this process by bringing unconscious material to awareness. If we interpret this in the context of alternate selves, individuation could mean not only reconciling hidden parts of our psyche, but also integrating the wisdom of our parallel selves. Each dream would then become a step toward a greater whole, in which fragments of many lives gradually weave together into a single, more complete consciousness. Other psychologists added their own interpretations. Alfred Adler, another of Freud's contemporaries, suggested dreams reflect our striving for significance and belonging. He believed that dream scenarios often dramatize our attempts to solve problems or compensate for feelings of inferiority. In this sense, dreams are like rehearsals for life, preparing us for challenges ahead. If we expand this to include alternate selves, then perhaps dreams are not just rehearsals, but borrowed experiences. A dream where you face conflict with courage might be the mind showing you a version of yourself who has already achieved that bravery. Instead of merely preparing you, the dream could be sharing the confidence of another life where you succeeded. In the mid-20th century, humanistic psychologists like Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers emphasized personal growth and self-actualization. They viewed dreams less as riddles of pathology and more as expressions of potential. Maslow suggested that dreams can reflect unmet needs or emerging strengths. Rogers encouraged paying attention to them as authentic expressions of the self. Again, if we consider alternate selves, then these emerging strengths could be echoes of abilities already developed elsewhere. Dreams may not only reveal potential, but also connect us to realities where that potential is already lived. Modern cognitive psychology has shifted focus toward how dreams process information. Researchers propose that dreams serve functions like consolidating memory, regulating emotions, and simulating scenarios. One prominent idea is the threat simulation theory, which suggests that dreaming evolved as a way to rehearse survival strategies. People dream of being chased, attacked, or endangered because it helped ancestors prepare for real dangers. While this evolutionary perspective is compelling, it doesn't rule out the possibility of something more. If dreams simulate threats, perhaps they also sample from actual experiences of alternate selves who faced those threats. Your dream of running from danger could be both a rehearsal and a reflection of a life where that event truly occurred. Beyond theory, psychology has also documented recurring patterns in dreams. Flying, falling, being chased, losing teeth, or appearing unprepared for an exam are among the most common. These universal scenarios invite symbolic interpretations, but they also raise the question, why do so many people across cultures dream the same dreams? One explanation is that these scenarios reflect shared anxieties and human experiences. Another is that they represent archetypal structures of mind. But if we imagine alternate selves, then perhaps these recurring themes are the most common points of overlap, the simplest and most resonant signals that cross between lives. Falling might reflect countless realities where failure or loss occurs. Flying might express the shared desire for transcendence, lived out differently in different worlds. Psychologists have also studied how trauma appears in dreams. People who experience traumatic events often dream about them repeatedly, sometimes reliving the moment in exact detail, other times symbolizing it in distorted form. Some researchers believe this repetition helps the brain process and eventually heal from trauma. But if we consider alternate selves, the repetition might also reflect the weight of trauma across multiple lives, with one version of you sending echoes of its pain to another. Healing, in this view, could become a collective effort, where dreams allow selves across realities to share and lessen the burden. Another psychological angle worth exploring is the phenomenon of shared or mutual dreams. While rare, there are reports of people having the same dream independently, sometimes with strikingly similar details. Mainstream psychology often attributes this to coincidence or suggestion. But if dreams are messages, then perhaps what appears as coincidence is actually resonance. Two individuals might tune into the same alternate reality, receiving impressions from another version of themselves or each other. Such cases challenge the idea that dreams are sealed inside individual skulls and hint at a more expansive network of mind. Lucid dreaming also plays an intriguing role in psychology. Therapists have used lucid dreaming techniques to help people overcome nightmares, rehearse skills, or face fears. If dreams are messages, then lucidity might be the moment when we consciously acknowledge the communication. Instead of passively receiving a message, we could actively engage with it, asking questions, seeking guidance, or even sending replies. This raises the possibility that dreams are not one-way transmissions, but dialogues, conversations between selves that become clearest when lucidity is achieved. Even more striking are accounts of dreams that produce real-world knowledge the dreamer could not have known. These range from creative insights to problem-solving breakthroughs. From a psychological perspective, these can be explained as the subconscious mind reorganizing information in novel ways. But if we include alternate selves, then perhaps the subconscious is not working alone. It is drawing from the memory banks of another existence. When a scientist dreams of a solution, or an artist dreams of a masterpiece, it could be because another version of them has already found it, and the dream is the bridge through which the discovery flows. All these psychological perspectives point to one underlying truth. Dreams are more than random static. They carry meaning, whether as reflections of hidden desires, archetypal patterns, rehearsals, or communications. And while psychology typically confines itself to internal explanations, the parallels with the idea of alternate selves are hard to ignore. What Freud called latent content might be the disguised experiences of another life. What Jung described as archetypes might be shared structures that exist across countless realities. What cognitive science calls simulation might be direct sampling of alternate outcomes. At its core, psychology affirms that dreams are messages from the unconscious, from archetypes, from memory, from imagination. The leap to consider them as messages from alternate selves is not as far as it seems. After all, what is the unconscious but a realm of the unknown? What are archetypes but universal patterns larger than one individual life? What is imagination but the ability to conceive realities beyond the present? In each of these, the boundaries between self and other, between one reality and another, begin to blur. Dreams become the meeting place, the shared ground where these layers intersect. Dreams often slip away the moment we open our eyes, leaving us with fragments, a strange conversation, a glimpse of a place that feels familiar but impossible, or the lingering sensation of an emotion that doesn't belong to our waking lives. But what if those fragments are not accidents of the brain, but deliberate signals? To explore this, we must dive deeper into how consciousness might not be singular, but distributed across multiple layers of existence, each sending ripples to the others. This perspective transforms dreaming into a dynamic exchange rather than a random narrative. It becomes less about interpretation in the symbolic sense and more about decoding messages that originate beyond the confines of one reality. One of the most fascinating features of dreams is their tendency to feel more real than real. While awake, our world feels steady and physical, but in dreams, the laws of physics and logic bend, and yet we accept them without question. A hallway can stretch endlessly. A loved one who passed away can suddenly appear, and we greet these impossibilities as though they were natural. This fluid acceptance could be a sign that the dreaming mind is tuned to a different set of rules, those of another plane of existence, where different versions of ourselves operate. Instead of viewing dream logic as illogical, we might reframe it as internally consistent within another version's reality. What feels absurd here may be perfectly coherent there. Neuroscience has given us important tools to map the structure of dreams, particularly through rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. Brain scans show heightened activity in the limbic system, which governs emotions, and suppressed activity in the prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thinking. This shift makes dreams emotionally intense, but less constrained by reason. If we view this neurologically, it's a release of inhibition. But from another perspective, this altered state may actually allow access to signals that would normally be drowned out by logic and external input. In other words, the very relaxation of rational barriers may create the opening through which messages slip in. This would mean our brain, instead of creating nonsense, is acting as a receiver with filters temporarily turned off. Historical records show that entire cultures treated dreams as communications rather than illusions. Ancient Egyptians kept dream manuals, believing specific images carried divine or spiritual meaning. Indigenous traditions around the world often speak of dream journeys where the dreamer meets ancestors, spirit guides, or other selves. In many of these traditions, dreams aren't just personal, they are relational, connecting the dreamer to networks of beings across time and space. While these interpretations are symbolic, they carry a resonance with the idea that a dream could be a message, not only from spirits, but perhaps from versions of oneself inhabiting other dimensions. The ancients may not have used modern language like parallel worlds, but their intuitions align with the idea of a dialogue between realms. One intriguing angle comes from quantum physics, particularly theories of entanglement. In quantum experiments, particles can be connected in such a way that changing one instantly changes the other, no matter how far apart they are. Physicists describe this as non-local correlation, something that defies classical space and time. If consciousness is somehow linked at a quantum level, then perhaps versions of ourselves across different realities are entangled as well. Dreams could then be the phenomenological evidence of this connection, the subjective experience of entanglement rippling through the mind. Instead of spooky coincidences, the images and emotions in our dreams might be encoded signals reflecting the state of another self. Psychologists often describe dreams as the unconscious processing of daily life, consolidating memories, solving problems, and rehearsing scenarios. While this explanation holds truth, it doesn't rule out the possibility of deeper layers. For instance, a dream of walking through a city you've never visited, but which feels oddly familiar, could be your brain piecing together fragments of memory. Yet what if it is also a literal impression from a life where you do inhabit that city? When multiple explanations can exist for the same phenomenon, it may be worth asking whether dreams are simultaneously psychological processes and trans-dimensional messages. The human mind might be vast enough to serve both functions at once. Take the phenomenon of lucid dreaming, where the dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming and sometimes can control the experience. In this state, people report extraordinary clarity, vividness, and even encounters with figures that feel autonomous, as if they are not mere inventions of the mind. If dreams were simply brain noise, why would these figures act with a surprising degree of independence? Some lucid dreamers describe conversations with dream characters who reveal knowledge the dreamer did not previously have. This has led some researchers to consider whether these entities are constructs of the subconscious, or whether they might be genuine emissaries from other layers of reality. If so, lucid dreaming may not be about controlling the dream, but about strengthening the channel of communication. The predictive quality of certain dreams adds another layer of intrigue. Countless people report dreams that seem to foreshadow real life events. While skeptics attribute this to coincidence or selective memory, the sheer volume of such accounts suggests something more complex. If time is not linear but layered, as some physicists propose, then messages could bleed backward from other versions of you who have already experienced those events. These precognitive dreams might then be glimpses into the lives of parallel selves who are slightly ahead in their timeline. Instead of prophecy, it could be crosstalk between overlapping versions of your consciousness. It is also worth considering why dreams are often wrapped in metaphor. If a dream is indeed a message, why doesn't it come in plain language? One answer may be that the message has to be translated across layers of reality, filtered through the symbolic language of the subconscious. Just as a signal traveling through static becomes distorted, so too might interdimensional communication arrive in imagery rather than direct words. This would mean that the strangeness of dreams is not a flaw, but the natural result of translating across frequencies of existence. Symbols become the shared vocabulary between worlds. Modern research into altered states of consciousness, such as those induced by meditation or psychedelics, also hints at this possibility. People in these states frequently report experiences strikingly similar to dreams, visions of otherworldly landscapes, encounters with unfamiliar beings, or overwhelming sensations of interconnectedness. Some even describe it as tuning into another channel of reality. The fact that such states can be deliberately induced suggests that our brain has built-in pathways to access these layers, and dreaming may be the most natural, nightly version of that process. If so, we are already participants in an interdimensional dialogue without consciously realizing it. Perhaps the most compelling argument is experiential. Everyone dreams, regardless of culture, history, or belief system. The universality of dreaming makes it one of the few truly shared human experiences. If it were purely random, it would be strange that it has remained such a central feature of consciousness throughout evolution. Dreams may persist because they serve a critical function, not only biologically, but existentially. They may remind us that we are not isolated, but part of a larger fabric of selves and worlds, connected by invisible threads that we glimpse only in the theatre of the mind. If this is true, then every dream is an opportunity to listen more closely, to ask, what is this version of me trying to say? If dreams are messages, then the question becomes, what medium carries these messages, and what mechanism allows them to cross the barrier between worlds? This is where science, philosophy, and speculation intersect in fascinating ways. To investigate, we must consider theories of consciousness not as a product of the brain alone, but as something more expansive, perhaps even fundamental to the universe itself. If consciousness is not generated, but accessed, then dreams could be portals into the wider field of awareness, linking us to other versions of ourselves who inhabit parallel realities. Physics offers one lens to explore this. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, collapsing into a single state only when observed. This many worlds perspective implies that reality continuously branches, with every choice, every event creating new versions of existence. In such a framework, there isn't just one you, there are countless. Most of the time, these versions remain separate. But if the walls between them are thin, dreams could be the point where boundaries blur, allowing impressions to bleed through. A vivid dream might then be less an invention and more a memory from another path taken. Neuroscience adds another piece to the puzzle. During REM sleep, the brain exhibits unusual electrical patterns, including bursts of activity in regions linked to memory, imagination, and sensory processing. At the same time, external sensory input is largely shut down. This combination means the brain is active but not tethered to immediate reality, a condition that could make it highly receptive to subtle signals. If other versions of you are broadcasting across dimensions, REM sleep might be the perfect window for reception. What seems like random firing could be structured input arriving from a place we don't normally perceive while awake. Some thinkers turn to the idea of information fields. Just as radio waves fill the air, unseen but real, there could exist a vast informational field that connects all instances of consciousness. In this model, dreams could be interpreted as downloads from this field. The content of a dream may feel symbolic, fragmented, or distorted not because it lacks meaning, but because it is being translated across a medium we do not yet fully understand. If this is true, then dreams might represent a kind of cosmic language, a method of encoding and transmitting experience across the boundaries of space and time. Experiments with remote viewing and shared dreaming provide tantalizing anecdotes. While controversial, there are reports of people describing locations they've never visited or recounting similar dream scenarios as others without prior communication. Even if these cases cannot be fully verified, the persistence of such stories across cultures suggests something worth examining. If dreams can indeed be shared, this supports the idea that they are not closed loops of personal psychology, but open channels that tap into a larger web of connected realities. The difference between my dream and your dream might not be as absolute as we assume. Another layer of intrigue arises when we consider déjà vu, that uncanny sensation of having already experienced something. Some researchers explain it as a neurological glitch, the brain misfiring and mistaking the present for memory. But others speculate that déjà vu could be evidence of overlap between versions of reality, a brief moment where one timeline brushes against another. Dreams, with their uncanny familiarity and surreal logic, might be the longer, nightly expression of the same phenomenon. When you dream of a place you've never been, but it feels known, perhaps it is not fantasy at all, but recognition of a life lived elsewhere. Even the emotional tone of dreams might carry meaning beyond psychology. A dream of fear, joy, or longing could reflect the emotional state of another self, transmitted through resonance. Just as tuning forks vibrate in sympathy, consciousnesses across realities may vibrate in harmony, sharing not just images but feelings. This could explain why some dreams leave such a powerful impression, because they are not about us in isolation, but about us as participants in a network of selves, each influencing the others in subtle ways. Philosophy reminds us that this interpretation is not entirely new. The idea that the self is multiple, not singular, has appeared throughout history. Some schools of thought in both East and West argue that individuality is an illusion, and that consciousness is interconnected, refracting through many forms. If dreams are indeed messages, they could be the lived proof of this philosophy, whispering that the self is not a solitary island, but an archipelago of possibilities scattered across the sea of existence. Perhaps the greatest mystery is why these messages are not clearer. If other versions of us truly wish to communicate, why do dreams come cloaked in riddles? One possibility is that clarity would overwhelm. Our waking minds are conditioned to linear time, fixed logic, and singular identity. If we were suddenly confronted with vivid evidence of countless parallel lives, the result might be psychological chaos. Dreams, with their metaphors and shifting symbols, offer a gentler form of transmission, hints rather than declarations, nudges rather than commands. They allow us to sense the existence of other selves without shattering the integrity of the one we inhabit now. In this view, dreams are not random stories nor simple reflections of the unconscious. They are layered communications encoded in imagery, emotion, and metaphor, designed to bypass our rigid waking filters. Each dream is a postcard from another you, written in a language of symbols that only becomes legible when you learn to read between the lines. The challenge is not whether the messages exist, but whether we are willing to listen. The idea of dreams as messages becomes even more compelling when we turn to personal accounts, stories from ordinary people who wake up convinced that what they experienced in the night was more than just a random mental play. These stories, though anecdotal, are surprisingly consistent across cultures and eras. Many report dreams so vivid that they blur the line between memory and imagination, dreams that carry details they could not have known, or encounters with figures who seem to act with independence. These accounts, while difficult to measure scientifically, create a body of evidence too persistent to dismiss outright. They invite us to consider that dreams may be a form of communication more universal than language. One recurring theme is the dream of visiting a city or place entirely unfamiliar to the dreamer, yet filled with detail and coherence. People describe walking through neighborhoods they have never seen, noticing street layouts, shop signs, or architectural styles that feel lived in rather than invented. In some cases, dreamers later discover places strikingly similar to those they dreamed about, even though they had no prior exposure. Skeptics might argue coincidence or subconscious reconstruction from fragments of memory, but another interpretation is that these dreamers are tapping into experiences of another version of themselves, someone who does walk those streets every day. The dream becomes a borrowed memory, translated into the dreamer's awareness. Another fascinating category of reports involves dream encounters with people the dreamer has never met in waking life. These figures often seem autonomous, offering advice, comfort, or warnings. Unlike dream characters who fade or change shape, these beings hold steady, as though they have their own consciousness. Some dreamers describe them as otherworldly guides, while others insist they are alternate versions of themselves, older, wiser, or simply different. The fact that such encounters leave lasting impressions suggests that they may not be arbitrary inventions, but moments of genuine connection, bridges between consciousnesses that ordinarily remain separate. Precognitive dreams are among the most striking accounts. Countless people tell of dreaming about an event, an accident, a meeting, a natural disaster, only to see it unfold later in real life. From a traditional scientific standpoint, these are dismissed as chance, selective recall, or misremembering. Yet the emotional force of these dreams and their uncanny accuracy challenge such explanations. If time is layered and multi-directional, it could be that dreamers are receiving impressions from selves who already lived through the event in another timeline. To the dreamer, it feels prophetic, but in reality, it could be a message passed across versions of reality, where one self's present is another's future. There are also accounts of shared dreams, where two or more people report experiencing the same scenario independently. These can range from simple overlaps, two people dreaming of the same setting, to complex interactions where both recall conversations or activities they shared in the dream. While rare, these accounts raise the possibility that dreams are not strictly private experiences, but shared spaces where consciousness can meet. If another version of you can communicate across realities, then perhaps dreams also provide meeting points between separate individuals, bridging not only dimensions, but people. One particularly intriguing subset involves dreams of deceased loved ones. Many people report encounters where the departed appear, not as vague shadows, but as fully present beings who offer words of reassurance, guidance, or unfinished conversation. While psychology interprets this as a coping mechanism, another view is that these are communications from versions of loved ones who continue to exist elsewhere. Whether framed spiritually or dimensionally, the effect is the same. The dream feels like a message from beyond, carrying meaning far beyond the constructs of memory or imagination. The consistency of these accounts across history is worth noting. Ancient dream temples in Greece were places where people sought healing and guidance from dreams. In Native American traditions, dreams are treated as vital messages for decision making and connection with ancestors. Modern individuals, regardless of culture, still describe dreams with the same sense of significance and mystery. The persistence of these beliefs suggests that people, throughout time, have recognized dreams as carrying more weight than random brain activity. The symbolic languages may differ, but the core experience, the dream as message, remains universal. There are also cases of creative inspiration directly tied to dreams. The chemist Auguste Kekule famously dreamed of a snake biting its own tail, which led to his discovery of the ring structure of benzene. Paul McCartney has said that the melody for Yesterday came to him fully formed in a dream. In these cases, the dream is not just a metaphorical message, but a literal transfer of information that reshapes waking reality. If we accept that another version of you might already hold the solution to a problem, then dreams could be the conduit through which that knowledge travels. Inspiration then becomes interdimensional communication disguised as creativity. Skeptics will point out that anecdotes are not proof, but when we examine the patterns, the sheer weight of human experience cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence. The similarity of these stories across continents and centuries suggests a deeper phenomenon at work. It may be that the messages are not intended to provide evidence in a scientific sense, but to guide, to warn, to comfort, or to inspire. Dreams are personal transmissions, tuned to the unique needs of each dreamer, carrying the voice of another self into the quiet hours of night. Perhaps the most powerful element in these stories is their emotional impact. People wake from such dreams with feelings that linger long after the details fade. Love, fear, awe, or a sense of profound connection. These emotions may be the true essence of the message, bypassing language and logic. When another version of you sends a message, it may not come in the form of words, but in the form of feeling. That is why a dream of a city you've never seen, or a figure you've never met, can feel so deeply meaningful. The message is not only in the imagery, but in the resonance it leaves behind. To understand the possibility of dreams as messages, it helps to step back and consider how different cultures and eras have framed this mystery. Across human history, dreams have been more than nightly entertainment. They have been oracles, guides, warnings, and sometimes sacred texts. The consistency with which civilizations have treated dreams as communication suggests a shared intuition that something larger is happening. While interpretations differ, the underlying conviction is the same. Dreams matter, and they carry meaning beyond simple imagination. In ancient Mesopotamia, dream interpretation was woven into the fabric of life. The Babylonians and Assyrians kept extensive records of dreams, cataloguing them alongside omens and celestial signs. Kings consulted dream interpreters before battles, treating dreams as dispatches from forces unseen. One clay tablet lists detailed scenarios, like dreaming of eating certain foods or walking in a particular direction, each tied to specific outcomes. Whether these were divine messages or reflections of inner worlds, they were taken seriously as communication, not dismissed as random imagery. The Egyptians went further, creating entire manuals dedicated to decoding dreams. They believed that dreams were direct channels to the divine, with gods sending messages through symbolic language. Temples contained sleeping chambers where individuals would rest in hopes of receiving dreams that offered healing or guidance. These incubated dreams were thought to be sacred transmissions, a practice that blurs the line between religion and what we now might call interdimensional communication. In their worldview, the dream space was a bridge between realms, not unlike the modern notion of parallel versions of reality brushing against each other. In ancient Greece, dreams occupied an equally elevated role. Figures like Aristotle and Plato speculated on their origins, while common citizens sought answers in dream temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing. People slept in these temples, awaiting dreams that would reveal cures for illness or direction for personal challenges. The dream was not seen as a private, meaningless story, but as a message worthy of ritual preparation and interpretation. Interestingly, Greek philosophers also toyed with the idea that dreams might reveal truths inaccessible to the waking mind, truths that perhaps belong to another layer of reality. Indigenous cultures around the world continue to hold dreams as essential to community and survival. Many Native American traditions treat dreams as messages from ancestors or spiritual allies, offering guidance for hunting, decision making, or rites of passage. In Aboriginal Australian culture, the dream time is not only the origin story of creation, but a timeless realm accessible through dreams. These traditions view the dream world as equally real, sometimes even more real, than waking life. If one accepts that consciousness may extend across realities, then such perspectives begin to sound less like mythology and more like sophisticated models of interdimensional exchange. Eastern philosophies add yet another dimension. In Tibetan Buddhism, the practice of dream yoga trains practitioners to remain conscious while dreaming, using the dream state as a path to enlightenment. Dreams are treated as opportunities to explore the illusory nature of reality itself, teaching that waking life may also be a kind of dream. Here, messages are not necessarily from external beings or alternate selves, but from the deeper layers of consciousness that unite all existence. Yet even this interpretation aligns with the idea that dreams reveal truths unavailable to the ordinary waking mind. When we compare these traditions, a striking pattern emerges. Regardless of geography or culture, humanity has always sensed that dreams are not closed circuits. They are porous, receptive, connected to something beyond the individual. The symbols, rituals, and frameworks differ, but the underlying belief is constant that dreams are conversations, whether with gods, ancestors, spirits, or other selves. This cross-cultural agreement should make us pause. If so many societies independently converged on this view, perhaps they were all touching the edges of the same phenomenon, interpreting it through the lens of their own worldviews. Modern science often reframes these traditions as psychology or cultural projection, but there is a danger in assuming that ancient people simply misunderstood. It could be the reverse. Perhaps our modern insistence on dreams as random brain activity is the narrower perspective. If dreams truly are messages from other versions of reality, then ancient dream temples, rituals, and practices were not primitive superstitions, but early technologies, methods for amplifying and interpreting interdimensional communication. The incense, chants, and sacred spaces may have functioned the way modern antennas and receivers do, creating conditions for clearer signals to arrive. This perspective also reframes mythology. When cultures describe gods speaking through dreams or ancestors sending warnings, it could be that they were experiencing what we might now describe as parallel versions of consciousness reaching across realities. Language changes, but the phenomenon remains. A dream of Zeus may not have been a literal god descending, but rather the symbolic mask through which a deeper message arrived. Similarly, dreams of ancestors might represent communications from versions of loved ones who continue to exist in other realities. In both cases, the dream acts as the medium, and the message adapts to the dreamer's symbolic vocabulary. If dreams are indeed messages, then perhaps the key lies not in asking whether they are real, but in learning how to read them. Ancient cultures devoted enormous effort to dream interpretation because they believed these messages mattered. Our modern tendency to dismiss dreams as meaningless fragments may cause us to overlook communications that could guide us, warn us, or remind us of connections beyond the visible. By studying the shared wisdom of the past, we might begin to recover methods for listening to what the dreaming mind is trying to say. As we approach the modern frontier of dream research, the conversation shifts from mythology and tradition into laboratories filled with electrodes, brain scanners, and increasingly sophisticated tools designed to measure the invisible. For centuries, dreams were considered elusive, fleeting, and impossible to capture. But today, scientists are beginning to map the architecture of dreaming with surprising precision, raising the possibility that one day we may not only record dreams, but even decode their meaning. If dreams are truly messages, then modern science might be building the instruments capable of tuning into their frequency. One of the most promising areas is neuroimaging. With functional MRI and EEG, researchers can monitor patterns of brain activity during sleep, identifying which regions light up when a person is dreaming. These scans reveal that dreaming is not random, but follows recognizable patterns of activation. Some groups have even succeeded in reconstructing rough images of what people are dreaming about by decoding brain activity and comparing it to known visual inputs. While still primitive, these breakthroughs suggest a future where dreams could be translated into images or even narratives, allowing us to analyze them in ways previously unimaginable. If dreams are indeed signals from other versions of reality, then we may be on the verge of building receivers capable of reading those transmissions. Artificial intelligence is now being applied to dream research as well. Algorithms trained on brain activity data can begin to predict what kinds of images or emotions a sleeper is experiencing. Some researchers believe that in the near future, AI could generate visualizations of dreams that approximate what the dreamer actually saw. While the initial intent is to understand memory processing and the subconscious, this technology could inadvertently provide evidence of messages embedded in dreams. Imagine discovering consistent images, places, or people in your dreams that correspond to realities you could not possibly have known. The line between imagination and transmission could blur in startling ways. Dream sharing experiments are also beginning to attract attention. While often on the fringes of mainstream science, studies into telepathic dreaming or mutual dream experiences have yielded intriguing, if controversial, results. Advances in brain-to-brain interfaces, the same technology that allows two animals to coordinate actions through neural signals, suggest the possibility that human minds might one day share dream states directly. If another version of you exists across dimensions, then perhaps future technology could amplify or stabilize the channels, turning fleeting symbolic whispers into clearer conversations. Some researchers are also exploring targeted dream incubation, where specific stimuli introduced before or during sleep can shape the content of dreams. By presenting sounds, scents, or even subtle electrical impulses during REM sleep, scientists can guide dream narratives toward particular themes. While this is often used to study problem solving or emotional regulation, it raises a provocative possibility. If dreams are channels of communication, could technology help us dial in more directly? Instead of waiting passively for messages, we might learn to send signals back, creating a two-way dialogue with other versions of ourselves. Philosophers and futurists are already grappling with the implications. If dreams are messages, then advanced dream technology could become the foundation of a new form of communication, not just with other people, but with parallel selves. This would fundamentally alter how we view identity. You would no longer be a single individual with a linear life, but a node in a network of selves spread across dimensions, all exchanging knowledge and emotion through the medium of dreams. Waking life would be just one aspect of a broader existence, with the dream world serving as the meeting place for your many selves. This raises ethical questions as well. If we can record and decode dreams, what happens to privacy? Dreams often reveal our deepest emotions, fears, and desires. If they also contain transmissions from other versions of ourselves, then decoding them could expose not only personal secrets, but messages never intended for this reality. Would those messages belong to you, or to the self who sent them? In exploring dreams as communication, we may be opening a door that requires careful thought about responsibility, consent, and the boundaries of identity. The possibility of dream exploration also intersects with the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. While it may sound far-fetched, some researchers speculate that if consciousness is fundamental and interconnected, dreams might be the arena in which communication with non-human intelligences takes place. Instead of radio signals beamed into space, the true cosmic conversation might be happening every night, inside the private landscapes of the mind. If so, then messages from other versions of you could be part of a broader tapestry of communication across beings, worlds, and dimensions. Perhaps the most radical possibility is that future science could prove what ancient traditions have always intuited, that dreams are as real as waking life, and that they exist on equal footing as domains of experience. In this view, the dream world is not a pale imitation of reality, but a genuine dimension, structured by its own rules, and inhabited by versions of you who are just as real as the one listening now. What we call messages are not exceptions, but the natural flow of information between realities. Our task is not to create the connection, but to learn how to perceive what has always been there. As we reach the end of this exploration, the idea that dreams might be messages from another version of you leaves us with profound philosophical questions. If it is true, then every dream becomes more than an odd story your brain invents at night. Instead, it becomes a window into another existence, a way of reaching across the boundaries of what you know to touch the unknown. This changes not only how we interpret dreams, but how we understand identity, reality, and even purpose. Consider what this means for the self. If there are other versions of you, living different choices and outcomes, then your identity is not confined to a single timeline. You are not only the sum of your experiences here, but also connected to countless variations of yourself. Each dream could be a reminder that who you are is larger than one perspective. The self becomes a spectrum, a vast unfolding of possibilities, and dreams are the threads that tie them together. It also challenges our sense of reality. We often think of waking life as the real world and dreams as fleeting illusions. But if dreams carry authentic information, then they cannot be dismissed as mere shadows. They might represent a reality just as valid as the one you inhabit now. This suggests that truth is layered, and what we call reality is only one level of a much deeper structure. To dream, then, is to step into those other layers, to participate in the ongoing dialogue of existence itself. There is also a moral and existential dimension. If you are connected to other versions of yourself, then your choices matter not just for your own life, but for the entire network of lives that radiate from you. Every decision is part of a wider conversation, a note in a symphony of selves. To live thoughtfully, to seek understanding, and to remain open to wonder may be ways of aligning yourself with the wisdom carried in these hidden exchanges. Dreams remind us that we are not isolated, but profoundly entangled with realities beyond our sight. Finally, there is comfort in this perspective. Dreams, often puzzling or even unsettling, can be reimagined as gifts, messages from companions who are not strangers, but versions of yourself who understand your journey more deeply than anyone else could. When you wake from a vivid dream, perhaps you are carrying not just your own imagination, but the echo of another life lived elsewhere, meant to guide, inspire, or challenge you. So as you drift into sleep, think of it not as an ending, but as a passage into that vast network of being. Every dream is an opportunity to listen, to learn, and to connect with something far greater than yourself. And whether or not we ever prove the science behind it, the philosophy remains. To dream is to be part of an ongoing conversation with reality itself. Sleep, then, is not a retreat from life, but a continuation of it, unfolding in dimensions that stretch far beyond the world we see when we are awake.